Okay, it's Toby from Heavyweight MMA here today with one of Australia's pioneer MMA fighters, retired from MMA and UFC, however, still apparently competing in Masters BJJ. The owner and chief instructor of Team Perosh Mixed Martial Arts, fourth dan black belt in BJJ, Mr. Anthony Perosh. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Toby. Nice to be here.
Just to go over your MMA career quickly, you had, according to the stats I saw, 25 fights. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's a lot of fights, man.
Yeah, 25 fights total and 12 in the UFC.
Awesome. So obviously, guys like yourself and some of the other people we've interviewed have contributed really heavily to the evolution of combat sports in our country. But I have a question. Nowadays, things have changed a little bit, and you've got guys like Jan Blachowicz, Israel Adesanya, etc., competing in similar divisions. How would you see the young Anthony Perosh back in the day if you pair them up with the current day champions in similar weight divisions? How do you think you would fare?
Look, my game's always the same. It doesn't matter who's in front of me. My goal is to use my strikes to stay safe and get close to you and take you down and try and choke you out. But every fight I wish he could keep fighting, and I would love to still be there, but it's that's long gone now. I'm really looking forward to all the Aussies in the UFC now and how they're doing.
Do you watch the fights now and just imagine that yourself being in there, having actually been in the UFC and facing decent opponents? Do you imagine yourself in there when you see these fights?
Not so much. Like you always say, "Oh, I could have done this, I could have done that," but no, like I don't think that anymore.
Yep. Now, I've looked at a couple of your podcasts and people talking about all your history and everything, so I'll try not to go over the same sort of things that some of the other podcasts talk about, your BJJ history with the Machados, etc.
Ask whatever you want, fine.
So I just was interested in, obviously it's been a massive change from having to train different disciplines, etc., in MMA to having schools like your school where you can go and learn all different disciplines together. Can you just talk quickly on the differences in the evolution of MMA from when you started to now? Like, what sort of differences are the main things that you'd notice?
Well, I guess the number one thing is there's a lot more people doing it, so which is great. That's why, when I was in the UFC, there's only three of us. When I say three of us, I mean three Australians. I think it was me when I made my when I fought on UFC 110 the first time in Sydney. I think it was me, George, Kyle, and James. It was four of us. Maybe five, or maybe I think Mark Hunt started too. So maybe say five. But now there's like 25 Australian, New Zealand fighters in the UFC. So that's come a long way. Like, we just didn't have the training partners like we do now. So, and even the fighters who are not in the UFC, there's still so many other fighters on local shows and lots of students, up and coming students. So there's a lot more training partners to help you get better.
Yeah, and you just touched on
which is great.
You just touched on your first fight in the UFC. Was that your first one with Mirko Kro-cop, correct?
I had two fights a lot earlier, like in 2006, as a heavyweight.
Yep.
I feel I wasn't ready. I think I was a bit too eager to get in, and I wasn't ready physically or mentally or anything for that. So then I got to fight Kro-cop in 110 on 2 days' notice, and from there, I got a 4-fight deal to fight as a light heavyweight, where I was more successful.
Yep. And over that time, what are those improvements that people talk about?
I think there's a bit of sun here, so I'm move myself.
No worries.
Oh, there we go. That's too light, too dark. There we go. Okay, how's that?
It's kind of dark now, but it's all right.
Arnold, how's that?
There we go. That looks good.
There we go.
It's a mixed bag over there. Eh? Lots of light and dark. It's in the morning, right? So just some of the things that people talk a lot about now are diet, recovery, doing additional fitness training on the side compared to the past. Do you think these things make a big difference to the result of fighters, or do you think that it's more down to basics and technique, etc., rather than all these additional things?
Look, even when I was fighting, I had a very professional attitude. I got my own dietitian. I made sure I did my own recovery, like a scheduled recovery. I made sure I did my strength and conditioning. But I still think all of that is still just the, how they call it, tip of the spear. Like it's just to sharpen you up a little bit. But to tell the truth, it doesn't really make a significant amount of difference. You still have to get on the mat. You have to learn your striking, wrestling, and grappling. The technique wise, you have to do your drills. You have to do your sparring. That's always first. That's always and will be first. Everything else, it really is just the last 10%. But you'd have the best dietitian and strength and conditioning coach in the world and best recovery, but it doesn't make any difference if you don't actually know what you're doing in the cage.
Yeah. I was listening to John Donaher recently, and he was talking about the focus on skills training, that if you have to sacrifice skills training to do one of those other things, and it doesn't make sense. Any thoughts on that?
I agree. Absolutely.
Yep. So early on, I believe you started with Kempo Karate and Muay Thai as the first sort of part of martial arts, right? What Kempo Karate was it?
It was under Paul Zadro here. They're called IMC now.
Yep.
I was with him for about, say, a year and a half.
Yep.
And he did like a bit of karate, tai chi, boxing, and jiu-jitsu, but I kind of fell in love with the jiu-jitsu part, and I wanted to pursue that more. So, but I had my first taste of jiu-jitsu at his academy.
Yep. And in the start, I read that you were doing security at the time when you started, like security as a job at the time that you started martial arts. What is there a correlation between the two, that you felt like it's good to fix your skills up in combat?
Yeah, well, look, I was at uni and needed a job, so I thought, oh, what can I do? So, I was naturally tall, and I was just going to the gym at that stage, so I was physically fit. So I thought, oh, I'll be a bouncer. And then I think in my first or second shift, I got into an all-in brawl in the car park. It was like 20 of us. It was a big nightclub, 20 of us and 50 of them, and I was just getting hit left, right, and center. I thought, I better learn something. So, and it just so happens that at the same time that happened, it was the first UFC. So that's when everyone started talking about this. Oh, what's this BJJ? What's this jiu-jitsu thing? So I looked into it, and here we are.
Yeah. So it's quite often a lot of the door guys, etc., of practicing something on the side just to keep themselves able to protect themselves. And then you've also got BJJ as being pretty applicable, rather than throwing strikes and getting yourself in trouble. You can learn to grapple people, right?
Oh, I think you still have to do everything. Like you don't want to be on the ground if there's a lot of people around you. But you can definitely tie people up and take them down and kind of move on to the next one. And but definitely one-on-one is definitely great.
How long did you work in security as a side job while you were studying?
10 years. 10 years.
Wow.
I was probably bouncer for 10 years or so.
So what sort of parts of your training did you find was most applicable to being in conflict situations in security?
It's not just the physical. It wasn't always physical. Most of it was just being able to be confident and talk. So you can talk your way out of and diffuse situations without getting physical first. But just sometimes it's necessary. But to tell the truth, when it comes to security, you're only as strong as the people around you. So I was very fortunate to work with good people who always had my back. I made sure I had their back, and really, that's really the main thing when you're out in public and there's a lot of people around. You want to make sure that if you get into a situation that you have people around you.
Yep. And in that security sort of role, did you have many occasions that you needed to choke people or anything like that?
Sure. You know, I don't want to get into. I don't want to just tell bouncer war stories, but yeah, I've there's I've had my fair few of situations.
Yeah, that just popped into my head. Talking to another guy that will remain nameless, was talking about how they went from seeing how many people they could choke out in a night to seeing how many breaks and dislocations they could do on shift. Crazy.
No, yeah, all no, days. You can't do that sort of thing. There's always cameras. There's cameras and people watching. Always, you have to be. Security is there is as a last resort, and you're part of the PR, so you can't just go around beating people up because you feel like it or having some competition. You can't do that. Yeah,
things have changed a bit. And like you said, now it's a PR job, and now there's social media cameras everywhere.
When I was doing, I caught like the end of the where bouncers had a lot of power.
Yeah,
but even still, then there were still cameras and people watching, and you always had to just exert enough force to just to diffuse the situation. You can't use excessive force.
So going back into you train Kempo Karate, you train BJJ, both kind of traditional or more traditional martial arts. What do you think are the benefits of traditional martial arts versus some of the more, like, I guess you would say something like external or Western arts like boxing, kickboxing, or even the way some people train Thai boxing in the Western countries? Do you think there's a benefit to the traditional side of things?
Look, it doesn't matter what you choose. I think really is whatever style of martial art you choose, whether it's a traditional one or like you said, a more modern one, or just make sure you're good at it. That's all. It doesn't just learn all as much as you can and use those skills to get the job done. So in the UFC, there's a lot of fighters that come from a karate background or taekwondo background or another traditional martial art, and they're very successful. So just be good at whatever you're doing.
Okay, and you traveled to, or one of the common themes that I see with a few of the people that we're talking about is we're based in Australia, early days of MMA, etc., traveling to other parts of the world to learn some knowledge, to increase their martial arts fighting skills, and then that knowledge comes back to Australia. You moved to Dallas, Texas. Was that sort of a culture shock for you at all at the time, or any big feeling about going there?
Not at all. Like that was well before my MMA days. Like I was just heavily into BJJ at that time. And with the job that I did at uni, I had an opportunity to get a work visa in the US. So I was keen as to go, and there's no real difference. It's always subtle differences with when you go to a different country, but they're pretty much like us. It wasn't too bad. I think because I'm a big coffee drinker, I think that was the big thing. They have terrible coffee over there.
Really?
So that was a big culture shock for me.
Yeah, and you mentioned about going in a competition between the Machado and Gracie schools. Was there a big rivalry between the two at the time in the States where you were?
Yeah, look, back in the when I was there in the 90s, like mid to late 90s, it was almost like gang colors. Like you just didn't. It's just the way it was. Like if you're part of Machado, you didn't really talk to the other group. If you were part of Gracie, you didn't really talk to the other group. So we didn't get into any street fights or anything. Don't get me wrong. But when it comes to competition, it was just we're with that team, and we're very, very what's the word? Very, very proud of our team and want to do really well with it.
in those competitions, was it very heated with the crowd, etc.? I've seen a few of those Brazilian sort of shows get pretty emotional. Was it an emotional feeling?
Oh yeah, of course. It doesn't matter if you're Brazilian or Australian or some other nationality. Like when you're representing your team and your country, it's you get very passionate, especially if at the high level you get. You just want to do your best, and nobody likes losing, and everyone likes winning. And when you win, it's everyone enjoys it.
Yep. And on rivalries, what about the Australian sort of scene in the early days versus now? Is there much rivalry between gyms for BJJ or other things?
No, I wouldn't say any rivalry. I don't think there's no bad blood between, but we're very competitive. At every competition, I say hi to all the other, Gracie and all the other different academies. Just Gracie's many different teams and academies out there, and yeah, we all say hi. And sometimes we lose, sometimes we win, and it's a really good, friendly but very competitive competitions and culture we have now. It's really good.
Yep. And the competitions, like those early days when you're over there, what were you competing at when you competed in that? You said a super fight between the Machado and Gracie schools. Was that competing at a blue or purple belt, or what were you?
I was blue. I was a blue belt. It was 1999, and yeah, it was just the year before I got my purple. So I was a blue belt back then.
The competition and the style, etc. back then, how different was that to people training now? Like a blue belt back then versus a blue belt now, how does that sort of rate? What sort of differences are there?
I mean, you can't compare. You can't put a blue. I guess the main thing, like back then, it was very. The majority. The goal was to get on top. Get on top, stay on top, finish from on top. That was really the mentality back then. Don't get me wrong, everyone still had a very good guard game, but if they didn't get the submission, they'd go for the sweep. If they couldn't get the sweep, they'd stand up. They wouldn't just be on the back just trying to go from one move and stay on their back. They'd always try to either finish from their back or get on top or stand up and then take them down. So I think it was a little bit more MMA-ish. Like it was a bit more, I won't say realistic in terms of fighting, but that was the goal. Like we didn't. Your goal wasn't just to stay on your back and try and finish. Your goal was to do one of those three things.
Yeah. So
in kind of that order. So if I'm on my back, I'll try and submit him first. If I can't submit him, I try and reverse him, get on top. If I can't reverse him, I want to get up and then try and take you down.
So you kind of would it be right in saying that the old style was based maybe on a self-defense fighting system rather than a sport?
That's how. I mean, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they have a very big self-defense aspect to it, and that's how, and that was taught down from all the the early coaches, and that's what comes through in the competition. But obviously, competition evolves. Techniques evolve. Look how many different guards there are now. There's a lot of different guards, a lot of different strategies on how to win. There's now the whole leg lock game as well. So it just evolves, and there's nothing wrong with it. You just have to, if you want to compete it, you have to keep up and deal with all that.
Yeah. And from listening to you and from seeing you coach before, you're a strong believer in the basics, the basic techniques, having a strong foundation. Do you think that with all these extra guards, et cetera, it kind of waters down and maybe lose some of those basics that some people get drawn into these, I don't know, maybe not as realistically applicable, like in a self-defense fighting scenario?
If you want to be good at any of those, let's say, modern guards, you have to learn your basics first anyway, because if you it's how to enter into those guards, you still have to learn your basics and start from the like a closed guard, for example. But I have a lot of students who want to maybe skip a step, go from A to like G, and miss all the letters in between type thing. But I just put them back on track. So look, here's our syllabus, here's our curriculum. How about we just learn this move, then this move, and this move. And, if you want to go and explore that a little bit, that's fine. But make sure you learn this, and this first, and then we can add that, a little bit later.
Yep. And in your syllabus, I heard you talk a bit on the syllabus. So you have X amount of moves to go through and to learn. Does that include a self-defense aspect in your school?
It doesn't. No. No.
Yep.
I thought about adding it, but no, it doesn't. Like, self-defense is like, you can't just say, okay, do this if someone grabs you here, do that if someone grabs you here. Self-defense is a real holistic approach. You can't just have BJJ self-defense. You can't just have striking self-defense, because anything could happen in any situation. So maybe one day I'll add some self-defense aspects to it. But if you really want to just learn, like, a good way to start, just come and do my MMA classes.
Yeah.
I mean, what better way? You learn how to put your striking, wrestling, and grappling together. You learn how to stay on your feet. You learn how to stay safe. You learn how to take someone down. You learn how to stop someone taking down. You learn how to keep someone on their back. You learn how to get off your back. So, I mean, that's self-defense in MMA.
Yep. And you have, I haven't looked at your timetable or anything, but I'm assuming that you have each kind of skill broken down. So you have your Muay Thai or kickboxing, you have BJJ, you probably have wrestling, and then you also have that combination of training. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So we have our, individual classes, learn your individual skills. And then in MMA classes, you learn how to put it all together.
Yep. Do you think, like, I know there's a few people coming up now, like young kids getting into MMA, they're starting with like straight into an actual MMA base where they do everything mixed together. What do you think the benefits of doing that versus coming in and saying, okay, I'm going to start with BJJ and wrestling as an example, and then later on I'll add on grappling and doing them separately? What do you think about that?
It's, if you look at every single fight in UFC, I'm talking about every single one. Okay. Actually, I'll take that back. Every single successful one, meaning, actually everyone in the UFC, to tell the truth,
yeah,
everyone is good at one thing. Everyone is great at one thing. So you might be a great striker, a wrestler, or grappler. And then you've got, in the other two things, you might be above average or just average. But everyone is good at one thing. So I think it shows that those who, if you go just to a freestyle MMA gym, yeah, you may be successful, you may not, but the statistics show that that if you want to be like a master of one, and be average to good in the other ones, to be really successful. So I use that approach where when someone comes to my gym, they might want to be a top striker first, or top wrestler, or top grappler. So they choose, and then but make sure that they always doing the other things as well.
Yeah, and you've got guys like Adesanya, master striker. You've got guys like Khabib, master grappler, wrestler. As a general rule, what would you recommend as a base for say a young man or something wants to start to train? What would be the first thing you would generally recommend for them to do if you had to choose?
No, there's no right or wrong. You choose whatever you want. Just choose.
Yeah,
doesn't matter. Like, you can't say, be a striker first. I wasn't a striker. My bread and butter is BJJ, grappling. So and then I make sure I learn my wrestling and striking. Someone else might be a striker first. You can't say, do this first or do that first. Let them choose.
Have you got any children, Anthony?
I have 2 stepkids. One's 14, one's 15.
Are they training?
Boy and a girl, yes. They're both state, national, and Pan Pacific BJJ champions
Awesome.
many times.
Awesome.
And so I got two stepkids. And would you believe at 48 years old, my wife is pregnant.
Awesome. Congratulations.
My first. So so expected 1st of November, I should say.
Awesome. That's awesome. That just leads me into what I was going to ask. Just for kids, what would you recommend as a start? And you've kind of given me the idea that you think BJJ is a good start for kids. Is that correct?
Look, well, I have, because I specialize in BJJ, I have more kids BJJ classes. I do have kickboxing classes, but I have a lot more kids BJJ classes. So I'm biased there. So I like the kids to do BJJ.
Yeah, and what about the striking? It's something that always comes into my mind. The striking to the head of kids. What are your feelings on that? Because it's kind of controversial and it's a difficult thing to sort of think about. Right?
Really, I start my BJJ classes as young as 4. So you can be 4 years old and start my BJJ. But with my kids kickboxing, you have to be minimum 10 years old. So kids under 10 don't. I don't teach. Some other schools do, but I don't. But that's no problem. Like you have kids karate, kids taekwondo, and they punch each other in the head, body, and legs from the age of 4 as well. So as long as you're A, you learn your skills. B, have your full protection on, and C, you have a good referee or a coach there to watch, so things don't get out of hand. I think it's quite safe.
Yep. So jumping on back into your competition days, you've had some fights against some well-known opponents. Some of the ones that stick to mind for me are Bader, Vinny Magalhaes, Mirko Kro-cop, Tahuna, etc. Can you talk about any of those fighters or those fights that kind of stand out to you in your mind, either as a great fight or a great victory or a difficult fight?
Look, don't get me wrong, my first UFC win was always it's probably always my most favorite win. It's just it's like that thing that where you actually it's one thing to make it in the UFC, but then you want to actually win and be successful in the UFC. So it's good to get that first win out of the way. So that was really special to me. And then obviously having a good win, good fast knockout against Vinny was great. And even my 2 losses fighting, one of the world champions, like one of the world's best, Mirko Kro-cop, that was a great honor to fight him. But fighting, but probably Ryan Bader, that was probably the toughest fight because I got rocked early in that fight, and I was always on the back foot. He was just relentless for 15 minutes. It was a really tough match, but I stuck in there. I was always trying to get to my feet, trying to get back into it, but he was just always one step ahead on that one. So that was probably my toughest match.
Yeah, and having to you've made it into UFC. It's an amazing thing. You're from Australia, going into the UFC. Not many people have done it. Pioneer in that area, and that must be a heavy weight on your shoulders to be going out to the UFC. How did you prepare psychologically? Did you have any preparation, or was it just let's go and do this?
Like I say, you just keep things simple. Everyone gets nervous. But Mike Tyson once in the interview says, look, he gets nervous too. But when the bell rings, you just got to grit down on your mouth guard and go. So you just make sure that you have a great training camp, because if you have a great camp, great training partners, good people around you, that's actually what gives you confidence going into the match. And if you have confidence going into the match, that's what kind of settles the nerves. So every time you get nervous, you just tell yourself, look, I had a great camp. I know how to do this. If this happens, I know how to do that. If that happens, and that's how you kind of stay on top of things.
So that's just sort of your mental affirmation that you've done the work, etc.
Correct, absolutely. You've done the work. You've done the. I always have like a little mantra. I say, I have the performance required to win. I have the performance required to win. Just and pick whatever mantra you want. keep going back to it every time you feel a little bit nervous. But on the day, just wake up, have your usual routine, have your usual food, get into the gym, get into the venues, have a good warm up, walk out, enjoy the walkout. Have your music blaring in the background, your walkout song, and high five everyone on the way out. And when that cage door shuts behind you, just go.
Yeah. Awesome.
Be first. Like I always tell my students, be first, be fast.
Yeah.
And you'll get the job done.
And on that, talking about your students, something that I've felt before too is you feel more nervous cornering sometimes than actually fighting, right? Because like you said, you're not really in control of it. It's out of your hands.
Well, you said it right there. It's out of your control. So, but I tell them the same thing. Like, make sure you do all the things that I did. Have a great training camp. Make sure you tick all the boxes. Do your grappling, do your wrestling, do your striking, do your strength and conditioning. Make sure you're eating well. Make sure you're resting up well. And then on the day, just A game. You play your A game. Be first with your A game. And if you end up in a bad situation, we know how to deal with it. So you just got to do it.
Yep. And I've heard you talk about your strategy, that you have the basic strategy of staying safe while standing, closing the distance, clinch and takedown, ground and pound or choke. That's your basic strategy. That's my strategy, but not necessarily my shoot strategy. Yeah. Some of them are more striking based. They want to stay on their feet. Yep.
Some are more grappling based. I want to take them down. So, I work with my students and work to their strengths, and we put a plan together.
Yep. So your plans for them are along the same lines, a basic strategy. This is our basic strategy for your fighting style.
Correct. Good.
And then I heard you mention that you only watch videos a little bit and make some small adaptations. Is that the same for your students? Do you follow the same sort of process? Like maybe watch a video here or there, but focus on that.
Yeah, we just at the start of the training camp. At the start of the training camp, we just watch a couple whatever videos are available. They might, my students might go and watch it over and over again, but I don't. I don't need to. So it doesn't really matter who's in front of you. You're still going to play your A game, 95% of the time. It's only that other, 5% you might have to adjust a little bit to something they might do, like uniquely do for them. Yep. So yeah, I don't obsess over videos like some other people. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Everyone's different, but I don't.
Yep. So the importance of competition, you mentioned for yourself that's something that you felt important for you. What do you think about as a general rule for people to take part in competitions in their chosen art, just for testing themselves and proving their technique, etc.?
Oh, look, I'd love everyone to compete at least once, just to get that feel. People always think that a lot of people who don't know about competition, the first thing they think, I'm going to get hurt. But if anything, you get hurt more at training than do competition. And then secondly, the second reason people don't want to compete is they don't want to, be embarrassed or lose, I guess. So they're always worried about that. But that's a part of the game. It's not win or lose. You win or you learn. And, I would love everyone to compete at least once. Because when you compete, it's the equivalent of doing a whole month of classes. You just learn so much from competing, like what you're good at, what actually works for you, and what doesn't work for you, and what you need to work on. And so, I would love everyone to compete just to progress a lot faster, really.
Yep. Hey, so in your gym over the years, obviously you would have had thousands of people coming through. What are some of the characteristics that you've seen in people that help them or have been inclined for them to be good fighters or good competitors? you know, when you see someone walk in, what's a kind of common thread you would find in these guys that are successful and good?
When someone walks through the door, I don't know. You can't pick straight away. Oh, he's going to be great. She's not. He will. She will. You know, you can't do that. Like, honestly, if they're coachable, I think if they're coachable and they listen, and they're coachable, you know, they'll go far. If they're a team player, I mean, you know, MMA and martial arts is an individual sport, but if you're not trying to get your teammates better as well, you know, you're not going to go that far either. So that's two qualities that I look for, is that you're coachable and that you're a team player.
So if I understand correctly, it's kind of something that can be developed. So you can, rather than people being naturally born a fighter, you want people that are able to work with a team and be developed into a good fighter, right?
Yeah, look, to tell you the truth, it doesn't, if you come from an athletic background or a martial arts background, yeah, you're going to have an advantage. You've already got a good head start. But if someone came in just did absolutely nothing, you know, there's no reason why they can't become UFC champion as well.
Yep.
If they come to me in the age of, you know, 16, 18, 21, 24, even 30 with no experience, there's no reason why they can't go all the way. You know, I got my BJJ quick timeline. I had my first martial arts class. I was 21, first martial arts class. Then, you know, I got my BJJ black belt at I was 30, and then I had my first MMA fight after that, and then had my first UFC win. I was 38. My last UFC win, I was 42. So, you know, it's really up to the person.
Yep.
If the person wants it, if they want it, and they work hard, they'll get it.
So what does it take to be that, to be a pro fighter, to be a pro MMA fighter? What sort of things do you need to be able to get to that level inside, do you think?
Well, it pretty much, you know, there's a, you know, you've seen a post around saying you know, you can't teach heart. You know, I guess that's something you have to. So, you know, not everyone can be a fighter or be a successful fighter. You know, you have to have that will to just keep going. You got to keep going till the very end. Whether you win or lose, just don't give up and keep going. So, you know, you need heart, and like I said before, you just need to be a good student. You know, listen, be coachable, and be a team player.
Yep. I know you've got quite a few fighters there. You mentioned you've got a handful of pro athletes as well. What would be a typical regime for a pro MMA athlete for your gym for, let's say, a week or so? What would they train?
Oh, look, you know, all of my students, you know, amateur pro, they're all full-time workers as well. So they're not a full-time fighter. You know, I wish it was a bit different. I wish there was, you know, MMA was a little bit more mainstream in terms of, you know, getting funding from like the Australian government, you know, like the Olympians do, for example. But, you know, maybe one day. But at the moment, you know, all my fighters are full-time workers. I have to work first. But I tell them to come at least, they train at least five days a week in terms, and probably usually double classes. So, you know, one sparring or one grappling, one striking, you know, etc. And then on top of that, they have to do their own strength and conditioning on their own time, whether they get up early in the morning, whether they do it after their classes at night. So yeah, I would say at least 12 to 15 sessions a week, if you include the strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
To you know, to step into the cage.
And just what you touched on then, people needing to work at the same time as training, that it's obviously not a great deal of money in fighting until you get to the upper echelon. What would be the normal sort of entry level pro sort of payments per fight in Australia, and what does that sort of progress to?
Oh, look, it depends. Look, it could be as low as say 500 to 500 and 500. 500 to show up and 500 to win, an extra 500 to win, or it could be 1,000, or it could go up to 2 and 2, or 3 and 3, or even up to 5 and 5. I'm not a promoter. I'm not sure about all those facts and figures.
Yeah.
But at least on top of that, the most promotions they allow they provide, like, say, $10 for every ticket you sell to your family, friends, and teammates. You get 10. Let's say you get $10 a ticket, so you can get a little bit of extra money from that too.
Yep. And how does those sort of pays compare to back when you were competing MMA in Australia?
Oh, to tell the truth, it's about the same.
Yeah.
So I was getting kind of those figures as well.
Yep. And then the ability,
there was nothing
the ability to get sponsors, etc. Anthony, is that something that's easy to do now, or it's difficult as well?
Sponsors, to tell you the truth, at the local level, how can you say it? Like, almost try and just ask your family and friends to sponsor you. Say, hey, look, I want to fight. Can you provide a little bit of cash my way to help me with my, pay for this and pay for that? And I would encourage people to do that.
Yep.
You're not gonna, at the local level, amateur fighters think they got one fight, one win, and they think they're going to get like a $50,000 sponsorship or something. It's not going to happen.
Yep.
Like, you won't even get that at the entry level of UFC. So really, the best thing any fighter can do, especially the locals, is just go pick up the phone and call as many people as you can, and just say, tell them your situation, and try and get a bit of sponsorship like that way.
Yep.
Anthony, even when I was in the UFC, and I was going to look for sponsors, like bigger sponsors, the first question they asked, like, let's say I had a fight coming up in the UFC, the first question they ask is, are you on the main card?
Mm.
And if you're not on the main card, it's like, click, they hang up on you.
Yeah.
So it's tough, it's not just because you're a fighter doesn't mean people are going to throw money your way. It's because in the UFC, people are not going to throw money your way. You have to go and earn it, go and work for it. Go and door knock, go and pick up the phone, go and talk to as many people as possible, and tell them the situation and say, look, I'm a fighter, I can offer you this, you give me this, and just go by the numbers. Talk to 100 people, maybe you'll get 1 or 2.
Yep. Do you have any connection with the current UFC fighters from Australia or from New Zealand?
Yeah. At the moment, the only one I is Thai Tuivasa. Like, he's come to. He did his last train camp. He's grappling BJJ with me. I haven't seen him the last fight or so, but yeah, always it was really good helping him, and he got the victory on that one too. So that was really cool too. Yeah.
Did you do any sparring with him?
I only did wrestling and BJJ sparring with him for that time. I didn't do any striking sparring.
I think that's probably a safe option, right? He looks like he hits like a truck.
Yeah, like at my age, like I said, I'm 48. I can handle anyone wrestling and grappling. I don't care if they're 21. I can, handle them. But with striking, obviously just get a little bit slower with the striking, and the timing's completely off, and it's definitely not a safe fighting someone in the prime if you're not in your prime, or at least you're up. You're up there.
Yeah, you mentioned about the good thing about BJJ is they have masters and weight divisions, right? So you can compete with someone your own age, but there doesn't seem to be as much of that in your striking art. So it makes it a bit more advantageous for the young ones.
Like I said, I'm 48. I don't mind. I wrestle everyone half my age and less than that. That's fine. And I want to keep doing that so I can stay competitive myself and always get better. I'm always looking to get better myself as well. So I'll hopefully continue to do that for a long time still.
Yep. I've only got one or two questions to go. I just wanted, do you follow the UFC now? You still following the fights?
Of course, yeah. Not as religiously. I don't watch every single pay-per-view and show and, read the news every day. And I don't do it as much as I used to. But of course, yes, we'll follow the UFC.
So what are your thoughts on two fights coming up? Conor Poirier 3. What do you think will be who do you think will take that one?
Look, I really like Conor. I want him to win every match, but you need to just be consistent. And so I'd like him to win. Whether he'll win or not, I'm not sure, but I'd like him to win.
What do you think he'd need to do to get that win after last time, getting the calf kicks and etc.? What do you think he'd need to implement this time?
Well, at least his number one problem all the time is just being cardio. Is the number one? Just number one, make sure you're fit. He's gonna be fit to go 5 rounds and have a walk for 5 rounds. That's number one. And then number two, just don't have an ego. Like if he's winning the first round or second round, then try and win the third, fourth, and fifth round. Don't take your foot off the accelerator. Just keep going. And if to keep going, it goes back to point one. You've got to be fit to do that. So you can't expect to knock someone out in first or second round and then just give up.
Yeah. And what do you think about his range? He seemed to be long range and then chopped that up to a short range boxing stance. Seemed to affect him a bit. That's when he got caught with the calf kicks.
Yeah, look, again, you have to play to his strengths. That's what he should be doing. And he just needs to do what he did in his matches up until he came champion. And then the first couple of matches when he was champion, that's what he just needs to do.
Yeah, and your short thoughts on one other one, Holloway, Yair Rodriguez. What do you think of that one?
Again, he's I like Holloway. I think Rodriguez will get it, but I like Holloway as well. But it's gonna be a tough match.
Yeah, true. Did you want to make any comment about your school, etc., before we go?
Oh, look, if you're in the West area, and I'm in 5 Dock in the West Sydney, and if you wanted to learn BJJ, MMA, Thai kickboxing. We've got adults and kids classes, beginner, advanced, fighter classes. Come on down. So give me a call and come and do a trial lesson. And if you like it, whatever your goal is, we'll help you achieve it.
Great. I think it's great that, we've got people like yourself, the pioneers of MMA that have taken all the things you've learned and then built schools that people can come to and learn everything. It's really good, really good. Australia's come a long way in the last 10 to 20 years. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, Anthony. I appreciate that you give me part of your day, and thank you for everything you've discussed. And yeah.
No worries, Toby. Appreciate it.